Hello and welcome back to another wonderful day here at MSA. So glad to see you. Glad you could make it. Today we want to make some sense out of some stuff. Now, before we get started, I would like to apologize. You haven't seen anything from us lately, and there's a few of you that have been following our channel quite loyally. And again, I have to apologize. I've been sick, and it's hard to do this when you can't talk. So we're back. Glad to see you. Glad we could be here with you to do this. Now, what this is we're going to talk today about an interview that Tucker Carlson did with a young man by the name of Jacob Chansley. Now, Jacob Chansley is also known as the Qanon Shaman. And people say, oh my gosh, we're going to go to January 6th again. Why are we doing January 6th again? We're not doing Trump. We're going to talk about some of the effects of January 6th. That's what we're here to do, to make sense, right? Now, I have to say this because I was taken back. I was watching this interview and Tucker asked him a question, and so his response, he talks about what the deep state is. And I will honestly put it to you, it is one of the best short explanations I've ever heard anyone do of what the deep state actually is. Trust me, I've heard people explain it and they get off and, oh, Soros this and, executive that and this corrupt politician and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. But this gentleman just puts it in his finite details of what the deep state is, which I think a lot of you would like to know because a lot of us hear the term. A lot of people have no idea. What do you mean by the deep state? Are you just talking about a couple people? Is it the Democratic Party? Is it the Republican Party? Who is it? What is it? Right? Now, we're going to roll a clip in just a second. Before we get to that, let's talk one more time about one last thing. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to watch us talk right now. We're going to get up to the clip, and then that'll be the end of the segment. For those of you that are watching us on Rumble or would like to transfer and watch us over on Rumble, where we can talk freely and speak about the things they keep suppressing us on YouTube. And trust me, as a young channel, we're being quite suppressed on YouTube. We have 50 videos over there and barely get any hits, and we only have about 13 videos on Rumble, and it's taken off like it's supposed to because they don't do what other places do. Let's just put it that way. So, do us a favor, hit the follow button, and tap the screen if you're on Rumble so we get actual credit for you watching this video, because that's important. If you're just sitting there watching it because it rolled up, we don't get the credit. Again, young channel trying to grow, share with everybody. Share, especially if you have people that are of the leftist party or they're Joe Biden follower. They need to see this kind of stuff because you were misled. I was misled. We all get misled. There's a lot more coming, and we've got 3 more stories that we're going to be doing, not in this one segment, but 3 more stories that we're going to be doing on these topics. And the reason that we're doing them on these topics is because it has a lot to do with the American freedoms that we're all slowly but surely losing, why we're losing it, and how it's going to affect us in the future is a pretty big deal. And so these types of stories, especially when this young gentleman discusses what the deep state is something that we all need to hear and remember, not so we can conspiracy theory everything. Please don't do that. Don't do that. Enjoy your life while you can. Okay? But when you start to see things out of place, you might be able to put one and one together a little faster, knowing what the definition of the deep state is, and maybe it'll help you understand what motives are coming from the people that you're hearing talk about things that just don't seem quite right, because they got to make sense, right? Exactly. So we're going to roll this clip, and then we'll be right back. And for those of you, we'll see you on Rumble.
Yeah, but these are human beings, and you're an American citizen and a veteran, and you did nothing wrong. So, you don't sound frustrated by it. Perhaps you've reached a Zen level of acceptance. I don't know. But it's a little shocking, isn't it?
Well, not when you understand what the deep state is and how they operate. So with that said, if you like, I'd like to bolster what it is that I said when I say that the January 6 events was a deep state setup and a deep state psyop by describing what the deep state is in about 2 minutes, if that's okay.
Well, I hope you will.
Okay. So the founding fathers described or characterized tyranny as the consolidation of all 3 branches of government into a centralized power: executive, legislative, and judicial. Now, when we talk about the deep state, what we're talking about is a tyrannical government. But the deep state is comprised of 3 aspects. Number 1, The first aspect is the circumventing of the checks and balances portions of our three-branch government system. If you corrupt the checks and balances portions, you don't need to corrupt the whole system, just the checks and balances that keep the centralization of power from happening. Right. So this is done through blackmail, bribery, lobbying, etc. Now, the other aspect to the deep state, the second aspect, is the bureaucracy. Now, the bureaucracy is comprised of over 500 federal regulatory agencies that are charged with regulating commerce. Now, these bureaucratic agencies are, in effect, writing law by writing the regulations that tell us what we can buy, what we can sell, what is legal and what is illegal. So that's legislative. They also have their own regulation enforcement agents that enforce their regulations on the American people. So that's executive. And they have their own administrative courts that are outside of the federal court system. So that's judicial. So that's tyranny. And now the third aspect of the deep state is the international corporations and the international banking cartels that have either blackmailed our congressmen or bureaucrats into submission, or they, through bribery and lobbying, they have written the regulations for the bureaucracy to then enforce. So then in this sense, the international corporations and banking cartels are using the government's monopoly on the initiation of force to reinforce their monopolies over our resources, our labor, and our currency. And they are using the government's monopoly on the initiation of force to take our tax dollars, public money, and put it into the private hands of less than 1% of the population. Now, that being said, they use psyops to ensure that we're fighting amongst each other and we don't understand or agree upon how it is that this tyrannical government has taken over the country and is forcing our compliance.
Now, I'm sorry. I have to say, I was told you were crazy. And because you wore Viking horns, I thought maybe you were crazy. But I spent my life in Washington, and I don't know what you're going to say next, but what you just said is true. That is absolutely true. That's not crazy. By the way, you described it really well. I've seen it firsthand, and I'm just kind of amazed. I'm not being patronizing. I'm just being sincere. That's not crazy at all, what you just said.
So, do you love Tucker's response? I was told you were crazy. I was told this and that, and you're not. Matter of fact, it's very accurate. I lived it. I've been there. The whole shebang. Okay? So, and the reason Tucker is saying that is if you go on the internet and you look up Jacob Chansley or Qanon Shaman, you're going to find out that there's a lot of places out there that have just thrompled over this guy's name. They have tried to make him out to be a kook, a nut. One of the judges even put him back in jail because he didn't believe that they were led into the Capitol by the police, which they actually have footage of it now. And they actually have footage of Jacob Chansley saying, God bless the men in blue and thank you for your patience and all this other kind of stuff. Who would do that if they were sitting there for an insurrection or trying to do something horrible at the Capitol building? Who would do that, right? Now, I really want to talk for just a couple minutes about what he said in that breakdown, okay? Because the deep state is something that we live all the time. And it's part of what I covered at the beginning of this segment where we talk, and we'll get to that in just a second. Now, that first part where he talks about the executive part of the deep state with briberies and blackmails and things of that nature. Can you think of a few instances where you've seen that? Some of our congressmen that have been pulled up on charges recently, and somehow, you know, I'm not going to say Bob Menendez or anything, but somehow these things just kind of get swept under the rug for certain people. Isn't that amazing? But more so than amazing is when you watch how some of the people get swayed heavily into going this direction. And one of the people that they thought was under this same type of influences was Ken Buck, when Ken Buck said, do not impeach Mayorkas, right? That it's against the Constitution. But he does turn around and say, but we do need to go after Joe Biden. Why would Buck say that? Because Buck was following the Constitution under that. Just so everybody's clear on this. Okay, he wasn't being a rhino. The Constitution, if Mayorkas had made the legislation the way that it was and was given, he's giving the orders to open the border, then yes, he's guilty and should be impeached for letting all the people in. But he's following orders under Joe Biden. Joe Biden's the one that made the policy. See the connection? So Mayorkas technically is following directions, even though, and we're going to get into that, we've done several stories on Mayorkas, and believe me, I'm not pulling him out of the mud at all. I'm just telling you that despite our opinions on certain things, we also need to pay attention to the fact that the rules and the regulations that were set forward by our forefathers, our legislators now, and things, there's a lot of parts to this that are true and accurate. And there are other parts that are very much, as we say, the deep state. And it's not always clear which way these things go. But what is very clear is when things start to go bad and they start to go in the wrong direction. Now, again, we're familiar with people being, blackmailed, bribery, and all of that. Now, sorry, I got to read a couple notes here because I'm still not feeling so well. So for the bureaucracy part of it, the regulatory agencies, we're all familiar with these, right? We have the Food and Drug Administrations. These are the big ones. We have, now let's just drop it down into a lower level where you have building codes and things of that nature. Now we're not going to be doing gas stoves and things in homes. Okay? Because that fits into someone's agenda. Everybody says, oh no, it's climate change. It's destroying our climate. Wrong. It's not. Quit falling into the deep states stuff. We're going to cover that last part in just a second, but quit falling into it, okay? Here's the other thing, too. There's another thing where, trying to save the planet and all that's wonderful, and I'm all about it. But at the same time, I also want to save humanity. And I want you to think about this. For those of you that don't live in areas like this, think about when Texas had that huge ice storm a couple years ago. And people are stuck in their homes. They can't go anywhere. They can't do anything, especially if they had an EV, because electric cars don't work in, sub temperatures. They don't go. So let's just think about the people that are stuck in their homes. They have no water. The power's been out for 7 days. Okay. The only thing keeping them warm is the gas fireplace in their home. The only way they can cook food would be on their gas barbecue, if it's hooked up to their home, or on their gas stove. So let's not lose sight on humanity as we're trying to save our planet, save ourselves, but at the same time, let's think about what, these regulatory agencies, they get out of control, okay? Because they go after an agenda. And then you get a bunch of people that are like, oh, yay, we're going to all do this. Now, let's go to the last part, which is when he talked about the international corporations and banks and their agendas. One of the things that comes from all of that is called propaganda. Okay? You have people with big, fat, deep pockets that have money that we can't fathom on a level that would be of the blue-collar workers, standard middle class, maybe under middle class, or maybe you're starting to get into the moderately wealthy. You still don't understand what it's like to have billions of dollars, okay? You could pay to have someone wipe you if you wanted to, okay? Think about that. That's real. Now, not a bad idea either. But on top of it, let's just go into this propaganda. Where have we seen propaganda around? What are we looking at? Turn on MSNBC. Watch Joe Scarborough sometime talk about Joe Biden and how Joe Biden's the best Biden we've ever seen is right now. Donald Trump is this. Oh, he's stuttering his words. He's doing this. He's doing that. And why do they do that? Because if they say it enough times, your brain is catching it. And pretty soon you start going, maybe Trump is starting to lose his mind a little bit. And maybe they were just, maybe Joe's tired because he's got so much going on. He's doing so much work. Actually, he's also done more vacation time than any president in U.S. history. Okay? But on to another part. When we look at the breakdown that Jacob is talking about, we really need to understand that this isn't something that's global. It is. But what he's talking about is right inside of our own country. And there's a select few amount of people. You have people like Kash Patel out there he was the director of national intelligence, and he talks about these things to a certain degree. He also mentions, when he does, he also mentions the fact that you have some people that are higher up that are creating the muck, and a few people that trickle down from that. But if replaced, a lot of these organizations could be stand up again and stand on their own 2 feet. Okay, and I'm not going to get into naming names because let's not do that, because the FBI is sacred, so is the CIA. We don't want to, talk about those kinds of people. They do kick in doors when they don't like what you say. So, now, there was another part that Jacob was talking about in here and how all of this pertains to January 6th. So, I want to play another little clip. Just so we get into that. I understand this is kind of a lengthy segment, but hey, man, I've been in bed for a week. I'm up. I'm going. Let's do this, right? So we're going to play another little clip. It's only a couple minutes long, and we're going to hear what he has to say about what he thinks January 6th was. And what he says is, again, amazingly spot on. So we're going to play this clip. We'll be right back. Just hang in there. Again, if you haven't tapped the screen so it registers as a legit view, and hit the follow button. Share with everybody, especially people that are going to just get all bent when they see this, because then they'll share it with everybody. Be like, look at this idiot, what he's talking about. We love it. See you in a minute.
Well, thank you. And no, what's crazy is trusting these bureaucrats and these congressmen, what I call the dinosaurs and the dinosaur circus of D.C., trusting them to fix all the problems that they've created over the last several decades. That's crazy. Now, let's talk about January 6th in light of what the deep state is and how it was a deep state setup. So we have Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell stripping Chief Sund of his powers, his emergency powers to put the National Guard there.
That would be the head of the Capitol Police.
Yogananda Pittman. Yes, Chief Sund. You did the interview with him, which was beautiful, by the way, where he basically said that he was stripped of his emergency powers by Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell because they changed the law before January 6th, just so conveniently. And then Yogananda Pittman, according to former Capitol Police Lieutenant Tarek Johnson, she didn't get any of the information that was being given to her from the FBI, the CIA, and the Pentagon to Chief Sund. So here we are. We have the checks and balances portions of our government corrupted, whether that be Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, or Yogananda Pittman, the intelligence officer in the Capitol. So that's the checks and balances, or that's also the bureaucracy. We have CIA, FBI, and the Pentagon not telling Chief Sund what they believed was going to happen on that day. So here it is, the weaponization of information, the non-use of information to ensure that something like January 6th could take place. And we both know there was federal agents in the crowd. We both know Antifa and BLM were instigating the crowd. We both know that Capitol Police were set up. We both know that Nancy Pelosi and Yogananda Pittman sat on their hands while the building was attacked, and Tarek Johnson was trying to evacuate the Senate and the House, and nothing happened. He actually evacuated the Senate because he didn't get the orders because he knew it was the right thing to do. And the whole reason Ashley Babbitt got shot was because Yogananda Pittman refused to acknowledge and evacuate the Senate. Evacuate the House of Representatives like Tarek Johnson evacuated the Senate. And so because there was people in the House of Representatives, the police officer used deadly force against Ashley Babbitt.
Once again, I want to stop you and say I'm looking for the crazy. I'm not hearing it at all.
I absolutely love it. Tucker said it again. I'm looking for the crazy. I'm not seeing it. Now, maybe dude is crazy. We don't know. But as far as what we can see from this interview, he seems to be a little bit put together, right? I mean, what he's saying, he's not quite making it up. It makes sense. It falls in line. He starts putting everything into perspective, looking at Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, passing, changing the law so Chief Sund doesn't have the empowerment that he once did. And if we look at some of the events leading up to that we know now, right, where that Donald Trump didn't order 10,000 troops to go there, which he can't do anyway. He can say they can go there, and he can order it, but he can't implement it. That has to be done by the Speaker of the House. He can't do it. And why can't Trump do that? Because think about it. If you wanted to take over and be a dictator, You could order National Guard to push everybody out of the Capitol. You could do all kinds of crazy things. That's why our forefathers put these things in line the way they did. Okay? So let's get back to it. Mitch McConnell, Pelosi, changed the laws. Then you got this Yogolonga Pittman. I can't say her first name right. It just doesn't work for me. But Pittman, she was given information by the FBI, CIA, all these organizations on what was going down or what could potentially go down. She didn't pass the information along. Isn't that amazing? Right after all of this happened, she resigned. And now she's working for, I believe, one of the colleges as their chief of police. Isn't that crazy? I mean, of course, all this goes down and she dips immediately, right? Let's get into the little part of this real fast. His section about what crazy is, I love it, where he says, crazy is trusting these bureaucrats and congressmen to change the things that they've actually been doing over the last 20 years. All these things. You wonder why laws don't go anywhere, why bills don't get passed, why they argue back and forth and all this kind of stuff. But you see some of the newer congressmen and senators, and they are on it. They want stuff done. Let's get moving, right? So let's just go into part of what it's called the deep state. Let's just call it that and leave it alone at that. I think that, Jacob Chansley getting in there, wearing his getup that he did, the whole 9 yards. He wasn't looking for trouble. It doesn't seem like it. It's like people that get all dressed up like that and go to a football game. They're going there to do a certain thing. And then, there was another report that I watched where the judge threw him in jail because he was on an interview and Chansley was on an interview and said, hey, we were asked to come in by the Capitol Police. And the judge didn't believe it, thought he was lying to 60 Minutes, right? Now we see footage as of recent where the Capitol Police actually did invite him in, actually did walk through. And Jacob's in the middle of when he's on the floor, and he's telling that, God bless the boys in blue. And thank you for your patience and all that as they're being led back out. There was no huge violence in there against him. He never lost his temper, got uncool, or got any kind of scuffle with any of the Capitol Police or police officers that showed up, whoever they were. Okay, the boys in blue when they showed up. So looking at all of this and listening to what this young man had to say, it's starting to point me back to what the original topic of this whole thing is, which is the deep state. How much longer we need it to go on? Why are we still entertaining it? When you have people like Robert Hur that could do a year-long investigation on the president about the documents and then comes back and says that the man can't stand trial because he has a poor memory. And people say, well, then he can't be president of the United States. Hur's saying he can't stand trial, he has a poor memory. The reason being is it's not that he can't stand trial. It has everything to do with the fact that he doesn't want to waste the taxpayers' money. It's simple, right? But look at all the garbage that's coming from it. And now we got Powerhouse Joe that did the State of the Union the other day. What was he all juiced up on? That's not Joe Biden. I'm sorry, that serpent face, and all that anger that spit out everywhere, that's not Joe Biden. That's somebody that's all juiced up on something. I guarantee it's all going to come out eventually. Let's say it now, because we all know it's going to come out. It's all part of this deep state narrative to keep things going, to snowball the effect as long as they excuse me, again, I've been sick, but keep this all going as long as they possibly can, as far as they possibly can, dragging all kinds of people through the mud, lying, and trying to take away a lot of freedoms, all so they can push one narrative so eventually we can have one government, right? Thanks, WEF. Looking forward to that. Okay, George Soros and Charles Schwab, no friends of mine. Definitely involved in the deep state. But what do you think? Put it in the comments. Let's hear some of this. Come on, hit me back. I got thick skin. You don't like what I'm saying? Tell me you don't like what I'm saying. If you think I'm full of it, tell me you think I'm full of it. But definitely share this video to people because these kinds of things need to get seen. These are the things that puts ideas into people's heads so they start to think when they're looking at something and they go, that don't seem right. It seems like someone's lying to me. I'm not trying to change the way people vote or who they vote for. What I'm trying to change is what's being voted in. So we all can benefit, right? So we all can have a better life. And I'm not just talking about a presidency. I'm talking about your congressmen, your senators, your governors, all these things. We all need to have a better life and be able to get along. And I'm not talking about just walking around giving everybody a hug and that kind of stuff. What I'm talking about is live and let freedom prevail. That is where we need to go. It's time to go back there and be that country again. That's what the people in 1776 did for us. We need to show our appreciation and do it for all the people that are going to be 200 years behind us. Right? All right. Now, do us a favor. Like, share, subscribe. We already asked you to do that. Hit that follow button. And also, so glad to be back. Love every single one of you. And I look forward to seeing you again. More and more and more, we're going to get to know each other a lot better. So you take care of yourself. Have the best day, night, whatever it is, wherever you're at. And I'll see you soon. Take care.